These are the three types of players that college baseball coaches completely ignore.
According to college recruiting trends, these players rarely get noticed.
Recruiting update data shows these three types of players are often ignored.
Before we get started, my name is Evan Mendoza and I played 7 years of professional baseball between the St. Louis Cardinals and the San Diego Padres. I even played in a World Baseball Classic, played D1 baseball at NC State University. I went through the recruiting process, so that's where I want to share all that knowledge with you guys so you don't make the same mistakes that I made in the recruiting process. And to be fair, I made plenty of mistakes in the college recruiting process. I went about it the wrong way. I was sending out way too many emails to these college baseball coaches, and I was probably hitting their spam folder. So on this ride and in this video, I'm going to share with you the mistakes so you can not be the player that college baseball coaches completely ignore. So mistake number one, and this is probably the most common one that I hear. Family members, parents, players, they get confused about how the college recruiting process should work. And to be fair, it's not supposed to be, crazy complicated, but there is a right way and there is a wrong way. So I'm going to talk to you about a little mistake that I think a lot of high school baseball players can make, and I kind of already alluded to it, by spamming these college baseball coaches, making yourself annoying. And yes, there is a certain point where it shows the accountability, it shows the desire to reach out to these college coaches. It shows, hey, I know I have what it takes, I want to get in contact with you. It shows that dedication, basically a very similar email each and every day. But are there drawbacks? Absolutely, right? And that's something that basically when I was in high school, nobody told me that you can get annoying, and that can definitely rub some people the wrong way. So that's where building out a strategy I think is really important, and that's definitely an area that I think a lot of families in the college baseball recruiting process make, and especially the players, because you definitely don't want to be annoying, but what is that proper cadence to make sure that these college baseball coaches don't forget you or your son? And that's the part of what should we keep these college coaches updated with, right? What kind of metrics do they really even care about? That initial email can change everything, right? By creating a great first impression, you can truly change the trajectory of how college recruiting works for you or your son. I hear just about every single day, I send some emails, but I haven't heard any responses. Well, kind of leading me into mistake number two is not tracking the necessary metrics around your emails, right? Think about if you played baseball and just never took any stats. They didn't care about who had the highest batting average, a Barry Bonds, who hits the most home runs. Imagine a world that these stats and these metrics just did not matter, right? Well, this is what you're basically telling me when you're saying, hey, I'm sending emails out, but I'm not getting responses. Well, that's like going up to the plate and saying, hey, I'm not getting hits, but I'm not swinging the bat. Well, this makes you have to think like, okay, well, what outreach systems and strategies can we even build on top of the emails that we're already sending? And by the way, guys, I studied aerospace engineering at NC State University. I really did enjoy engineering, math, sciences. I actually excelled for the most part until junior year. Classes got pretty difficult. But either way, I have that tech background where I assist all my students to build out this outreach system to make sure that it really is being delivered on autopilot for these college baseball coaches. Sending emails is not fun, and copying and pasting the same exact template to every single college just shows that you're willing to cut corners, and college coaches can pick up on that very, very quickly. So again, building those metrics around what your emails are performing and how they're performing, right? Again, like batting average, like home runs, like RBIs, these are all metrics that showcase the overall performance of a player. We need to do the same thing for our emails. So as far as our open rate, our delivery rate, our click-through rate, our response rate, like these are all metrics that we need to be taking into account if we want to have better performance when it comes to our outreach system. And maybe you don't even have a system, and that is completely okay. That is where you can go ahead down below in the description, download those 7 steps on how to reach out to college baseball coaches the right way. It'll give you a little bit more of a comprehensive look on who we are, who I am, how basically I teach some of my students. I have a ton of free resources in there, but yeah, you can go grab that down below in the description if you haven't already. All right, let's get back into it. Mistake number 3, and this one honestly is probably one of the biggest ones, right? You or your son believe in playing locally, and that's completely okay. Yes, if you're good enough, they will come and scout you. But the idea of only playing locally, you are really casting a tiny net on the schools in that local region that are willing to come watch you play. And yes, this is where the conversation of, is travel ball really worth it? Are these showcases and camps really worth it? If I really had to stack them up highest to lowest, just talking about junior year, the summer after junior year of high school, because this is where I think a lot of the families come to me and asking for some guidance. Junior year summer, travel baseball tournaments are a top priority. It is very, very important that we not only play on those right fields or right team, but we're also reaching out to these college coaches so that way we maximize travel baseball and the travel baseball schedule. If we're just playing in these events expecting that these college coaches are coming in attendance, you have been mistaken. You have been fed some bad information. And by the way, speaking from someone who played, probably if I had to put like a perfect game ranking, which you guys love these perfect game rankings and everything, but for FTB, back when FTB was only 2 teams, Jared Goodwin, he's high up with perfect game. He'll never, I think he said it a couple of times actually, that the team that was one of his favorites, it was star-studded. We had Bo Bichette, we had Sean Reed Foley, we had Ryan Mountcastle, Nick Gordon, we had a catcher that made it pretty high up, the Braves, I'm blanking on the name, but it was star-studded. Everyone threw 90 plus, and I was one of 2 players on that team that was not committed. So think about that. I was one of 2 players that was not committed. I felt like the outsider, but we were on a star-studded team, and there were pro scouts for the MLB draft looking at some of these players, right? The thing is, there wasn't really a ton of college scouts, and I kind of, to a certain extent, thought that through travel ball, these college coaches were going to come into attendance just because, right? But if you think about it, if the whole team is already committed, we were one of the best teams. I still had to take the initiative to let these college coaches know, like, hey, I'm going to be on this field. And basically, that's part of the outreach system. But it's also retargeting with these college coaches and ensuring that we have some level of a cadence. We keep them updated. We keep them posted. Use whatever terminology you want, but we need to make sure that there's that system behind it. So a big mistake is thinking too small, right? You think you're going to be able to get a bunch of college coaches interested in you if you don't attend these big travel ball tournaments. And I will say these travel ball tournaments are huge, especially junior year, and that's why it's at the top of the priorities. Now that middle ground, I do think showcases are important to showcase your tools, your overall metrics, your raw talent, right? Not saying that you have to be a great showcase player, because I wasn't a good showcase player by any means. I did not throw the ball extremely hard. I didn't have an eye-popping exit velocity, and my 60-yard dash time was like a 7.4 in high school. So I was just like a very middle of the pack type of player in a showcase environment. But I knew baseball IQ, I knew defense, I knew how to pitch, right? Hitting my spots. I was a 3-pitch mix type of guy. My changeup was disgusting back in the day. These were all these things that showcases don't ever really truly translate how good of a baseball player you are, right? They only care about the raw metrics, right? Your exit velocity, arm velocity, your pop time for catchers, things like that, right? So going to these showcases are important because some colleges do value these metrics more than your baseball IQ. They think, you know, we'll be able to recruit this player that's able to throw 95 miles an hour, but does not have a clue on where first base is. We'll be able to teach them bunt defense, cutoffs and relays, that baseball IQ, thinking ahead, having the right mindset, how to deal with failure. They believe that they are going to be able to turn that raw talent into players that are able to ultimately learn the game of baseball. There are also some coaches out there that really prioritize the guys that know baseball. They have that 6th tool. They have those intangibles. They think, okay, we'll get them to our university. We know how to develop physically, not only mentally, but we'll make sure that his physical development, his player development is structured in a way where his physical abilities are able to progress at that specific university, right? So showcases and tournaments, I view tournaments more as you're able to showcase your overall baseball performance and IQ and playing. At the end of the day, you do have to perform over here in the tournaments. In the showcases, it's all about raw metrics, raw talent. And of course, if you're great at both, you have a high chance of these college coaches liking you. But if you only have one or the other, it's not that you can't play college baseball. It's just that these are what these evaluation events are able to really showcase for you or your player. Now, at the very bottom of the totem pole, I will say college camps are probably the least priority, because you're only going to be secluded to that one individual university, and it could be, depending on which event that you're you're going to at that specific university, it could be a fun camp. And what I mean by a fun camp, it's kind of open to the public. You don't want these things because it's not going to be the best situation for you to really develop a relationship with these college coaches. Usually there's going to be a couple of coaches there, not just like the volunteer assistant, which is usually the one that is coordinating the entire camp, but also maybe the assistant coach and maybe the head coach will be in attendance. Maybe not though, right? So again, how do we develop those relationships if they're not even there? And this is more of to fill the pockets of the volunteer coaches, guys. I think 3 different volunteer coaches, maybe no. I think I had 2 different volunteer assistants when I was at NC State, and both of them were great guys. Both of them played some professional baseball. And a lot of you guys know in professional baseball, you don't get paid anything crazy, especially in the minor leagues. And these 2 volunteer assistants for NC State never made it to the big league, so they never made the big bucks. And when you're a volunteer assistant, you don't make any money through the university. So you make the money through the camps. So again, they're coordinating. They're basically trying to get as many people to sign up as humanly possible. And then they run the camp, and that's that. Sometimes, yes, you can be a star, you can be a stud, you can ball out, you can develop those relationships. You can sometimes get lucky and, you know, shake hands with the head coach. But again, it's a lot of luck, and it's a lot of wanting to make sure that you're going to the right evaluation event for that specific college. There are some prospect camps that are a little bit more guided towards those juniors and seniors that are more eligible for the recruiting process. But then there's just like the fun camps for the 8th and 9th and 10th graders you might get mixed in with. And then again, it's just not going to be the best environment for you to be not only developing your skills, but developing your mindset. Like I always felt when I was in high school, I always wanted to be surrounded by absolute studs. So that way I can elevate my gameplay. If I went to a college camp, by the way, I went to a few, I'd say probably like at least 5 or 7 college camps all the way from my middle school days of like, since like 4th or 5th grade, I went to University of Miami camp twice. It was a really fun camp, but it was more guided towards those middle school and early high schoolers. Anyway, I always did not like when I went to one of these camps and the talent level was way below me because I didn't feel like I was progressing. I didn't feel like I needed to get better. I always wanted to play with older kids so that way I had that hunger and that drive to actually get better and develop my skills. So that's something that you kind of run the risk of when you go to these college camps. You might not necessarily be in the best environment to be able to have that mindset of growth, whereas typically showcases, you'll see the guys that are throwing 95 and you're like, whew, I need to work. You'll go to tournaments and you'll see pitchers typically in the travel ball circuit that are throwing 90, 95 miles an hour in high school. And those are the top 1%ers, right? Don't necessarily compare yourself. Comparison is the thief joy, but you'll see that. And it should light that fire of wanting to get better, wanting to develop, wanting to get that edge any way possible. So to wrap this up, guys, if you are looking for that edge, you can click down below in the description to learn a little bit more about working one-on-one with me inside my remote training program called the Triple Play. And if that's something that interests you, go ahead and click that link right now.